I'm Amitha Sharma. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, the fight for $15 takes over San Diego's streets. The demand for higher pay echoing across the nation today.
How important is SeaWorld's business to San Diego's economy? I'm Peggy Pico with business and marketing analysis of the park's new plan. Plus, a former Navy SEAL and his special ops dog Chopper join me for a preview of the new documentary, Seal Dog.
All that asphalt, all that just sunk. So it was a big, you could have had a swimming pool out there.
A wet mess leaving behind tens of thousands of dollars in damage. The San Diego workers playing catch up with a new leader in water main breaks. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Federal authorities in San Diego arrested 5 medical professionals today in connection with a $25 million workers' comp scam. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says authorities from multiple agencies were involved in the investigation.
5 individuals and 6 corporations are charged with conspiracy and mail fraud. Officials say the defendants were involved in a massive kickback and bribe scheme. Officials say the scheme included illegal payments for patient referrals and, in some cases, improper medical treatments. Hundreds of patients were affected. California Insurance Commissioner Dave Jones says these were not victimless crimes.
The victims of insurance fraud are the people and businesses of California. When insurers are defrauded, insurers pass the cost of fraud on to the rest of us in the form of higher premiums.
These are the first in what officials say will be a series of indictments for medical fraud. Reporting from the federal courthouse, Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Congress has passed a bill banning the transfer of Guantanamo detainees to the U.S. President Barack Obama had been trying to transfer them since he was sworn into office. The more than $600 billion bill is sparking a debate over whether the president needs congressional approval to move the detainees or if he could do it with an executive order. Meanwhile, in San Diego, the city council passed a resolution opposing any transfer of Guantanamo Bay detainees to the Marine Corps Air Station Miramar. The Miramar Station had appeared on a list of potential transfer sites in a 2012 government report. But the administration has also considered other facilities in Colorado, Kansas, and South Carolina. They're not giving up. President Obama says he will ask the Supreme Court to greenlight his long-delayed plans to protect up to 5 million immigrants from deportation. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero has more on the legal fight.
The decision comes after a federal appeals court upheld an injunction against the plans, known as DAPA and expanded DACA. President Obama wants to give permits to parents of U.S. citizens as well as to certain young immigrants. The Fifth Circuit Court says the administration doesn't have the authority to do this. But Ginger Jacobs, an immigration attorney in San Diego, says the reforms may still go through.
The Supreme Court has ruled on cases that involve similar issues in a way that's favorable to the executive branch, which, breaking it down, means they're very likely to take President Obama's side.
She says up to 100,000 immigrants in San Diego could qualify for either DAPA or expanded DACA. I spoke to one of them, Patricia Soria, a 48-year-old immigrant who cleans houses in Escondido. She says the delays of DAPA mean she may never get to see her mother again. Her mother lives in Mexico and has recently developed Alzheimer's.
I was hoping to have the DAPA to see her before she dies, so she forgot my name, and it's now almost impossible. I will continue fighting. This is not the end, I know.
For now, Soria will remain in limbo. The appeal still has to be filed, and the Supreme Court will then have to decide whether to take it up. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Placing their orders and demanding change. Hundreds of fast food workers joined union activists today in San Diego, all rallying for a higher minimum wage. The fast food protests were planned by organizers at more than 270 cities nationwide. It's part of an ongoing campaign called Fight for 15 campaign, calling on companies for a $15 an hour minimum wage. KPBS reporter Steve Walsh is live downtown San Diego with more.
That's right. I'm down here in front of City Hall where roughly 1,000 people have converged here to rally to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. This is part of a whole day of protests and rallies that have gone around the city of San Diego supporting the notion of raising the minimum wage. Earlier I talked with Simone Fillmore, who's 27 years old. She has an 8-year-old daughter and a husband with epilepsy. She's also the sole breadwinner for the family.
People think flipping burgers is easy, but you have to understand that I don't just flip burgers. I'm a cook, I'm a preparer, I'm a cashier. I do any and everything that my job requires me to do on a daily basis. There's times when I'm 3 people in one time. So I work twice as hard just like everyone else, and I believe that we all deserve to be able to live stable lives, and $9 an hour is not going to get us that.
A coalition of at least 30 union and social justice organizations have sponsored events around California today. There have also been major protests in New York, Cleveland, Chicago, Seattle, and Los Angeles. Coming up here in San Diego, we're supposed to have Speaker of the House Tony Atkins and Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez. Live from City Hall, I'm Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
And the state of California will start paying home care workers overtime beginning next February. More than 400,000 in-home supportive services workers will be eligible for the benefit. After a series of legal challenges, a federal court of appeals ruled in favor of overtime pay for home health workers last month. Lindbergh Field is getting a little greener. 9 out of 10 taxis at the airport are now alternative-powered vehicles. County Supervisor Greg Cox says 33 new hybrid cabs were recently purchased as part of the San Diego Airport Authority's taxi cab replacement program.
And the significance of that is that with those 33 new alternative powered taxis, we'll be saving about 52,000 gallons of gas that the taxi cabs would otherwise be using. But more importantly for the citizens of San Diego County, we'll see a reduction of about 865 tons of pollutants that otherwise would be spewing out from the older gas-powered vehicles that they were driving.
Cox says the county is working on making the entire fleet of the airport's taxis eco-friendly. No home field advantage for San Diego in the next round of NFL talks. Mayor Kevin Faulconer flies to New York tonight ahead of tomorrow's presentation to NFL team owners. The mayor will be touting San Diego's plan for a new Charger stadium in Mission Valley. County Supervisor Ron Roberts and stadium consultants will join him. NFL team owners next year will decide whether to keep the Chargers in San Diego or allow them to relocate to Los Angeles. Analysts say it's the mayor's last shot.
He's got to give it his best shot, but I think that there's not going to be a lot that he's going to say at this meeting that they don't already know. I don't think there's going to be an astounding amount of new information that's going to be coming out on the table.
The mayor said this week that tomorrow's meeting is an opportunity for San Diego and that there's no substitute for face-to-face communication. Following up on the latest plans to transform SeaWorld San Diego, we first told you about the park planning to phase out orca shows. Peggy Pico looks at the business side of the park's future plans.
SeaWorld says it's looking into developing a resort in partnership with Evans Hotels, which owns the lodge at Torrey Pines and San Diego's Bahia Resort Hotel. Joining me to discuss SeaWorld's shifting business strategy is business marketing expert Bernie Schroeder, director of Lavin Entrepreneurship Center at San Diego State University. And Bernie, what do you think this resort-style model would actually do for SeaWorld's bottom line?
You know, I think one of the things they're reacting to at SeaWorld is the fact that the orca show is no longer going to be driving their future traffic or revenue. So I think they're reaching out and looking at changing the business model. One of the options is doing this potential deal with Evans Hotel. I think if they can become a destination, it's going to be good for San Diego.
I was going to say, does San Diego even need another resort, though?
You know, I think if you look at why people come here, I mean, when I often ask guests that come here, and there's a lot of students on the campus that come here from Europe, and I say, you know, when you come here, what do you go see? And they say, we go see SeaWorld, the San Diego Zoo, and the Wild Animal Park. And I think that might be true for a lot of people that come to San Diego.
All right. In terms of business and profits, though, what do you think motivated SeaWorld to make this kind of monumental change, really, in the way it does business?
You know, I don't think Blackfish necessarily was the tipping point, although it might have been the hastening point. I think if you look at their stock price 5 years ago, it's been cut in half in the last 5 years. Visitor traffic continues to decline quarter over quarter, and I think they finally got the message that the marketplace doesn't necessarily want to go see orca shows, especially the millennial marketplace that's growing.
And why the millennials?
You know, because, you know, I see it on the campus, and obviously with the number of the types of people we work with in the community, that millennial audience is very much into social causes. They're very much into the environment. And they're trying to figure out what they're going to support and what they're not going to support. And I think they're figuring out, based on the negative press, they're not going to support SeaWorld.
Well, speaking of that, SeaWorld's president and CEO Joel Manby says he wants to change public perception of the company. Let's listen.
People love companies that have a purpose, including for-profit companies. I mean, I don't have to tell you what Whole Foods stands for. I don't have to tell you what Tom's Shoes stands for. You know, they all have a very specific purpose, a very specific goal of what they're trying to accomplish. And I don't see any reason that SeaWorld can't be one of those brands. Now, we're not there today. I know we're not there today.
So, Manby admits SeaWorld is not there yet. What would it take to become aligned or to be considered a socially responsible company like the ones he mentioned?
You know, it's fascinating to me that they still don't have their business model figured out, but he is mentioning socially responsible companies, or at least companies that listen to their customers. I think what they're going to try to do, or what they have to do, if he wants to be like a Whole Foods or a Tom's or any socially perceived company, he's going to have to figure out an authentic way of getting there. It's not going to be through PR. It's not going to be by likening himself to these other brands. They're going to have to sit down and look at the business model that they're going to have to craft and say, is this an authentic brand that aligns with our future customers?
SeaWorld employs between 2,000 employees in the off-season and up to 4,500 employees during the peak season. How important is SeaWorld to San Diego's economy?
You know, I think just looking at those numbers from 2,500 to 4,500 during the year, that makes them a significant employer in San Diego, and let alone the revenue that it drives, because it just doesn't drive SeaWorld revenue. It drives hotel revenue. It drives airfare. It drives a lot of things. So I think they're an important player in our hospitality and tourism space. I think they have the opportunity right now to redefine their brand and do something amazing.
Would you anticipate seeing an increase in SeaWorld's park attendance leading up to the last shows, the last Shamu entertainment shows?
You know, this is an area that they better be really careful. It's almost like you have the last lion or the last elephant show on a declining circus. The audience in the community has weighed in and said we're not really interested in these shows. They have to, from a PR perspective, be very careful and try to be as authentic as possible as they recraft not only the brand but the business model, because if they are deemed unauthentic on their journey to where they need to go, that will hurt them.
All right, Bernie Schroeder, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
A new report finds there are not enough affordable homes being built in San Diego, and the trend could become a crisis. The London Group and the San Diego Chamber of Commerce studied local housing trends. They found the region isn't building new homes fast enough to keep up with demand. Experts say that may put a cramp on the region's economy over time. According to the report, regulatory barriers to building homes in the San Diego region will make it hard to accommodate a growing population. State and federal officials unveil the blueprint of a sweeping plan for the future of Southern California deserts. The U.S. Bureau of Land Management says the plan designates nearly 500,000 acres for potential solar, wind, and geothermal plants. About 9 million more acres were designated for conservation and recreation. For years, cast iron water mains were the likeliest pipes to break in San Diego. In response, the city has focused on replacing them. But now there's a new leader in water main breaks. As Joe Girardi with KPBS News partner iNewsSource tells us, the city has some catching up to do.
It's an unusually hot October afternoon on Beta Street in southeastern San Diego's South Crest neighborhood. Catherine Lemoyne is telling me about the day in May when an 8-inch asbestos cement water main on her street broke.
So I thought it was a little bit of water, you know? It was like a river came.
By the time a public utilities crew shut the water off, some 380,000 gallons had spilled onto the street. The front yard, driveway, garage, and backyard of the property Lemoyne had owned for 30 years were flooded.
All that asphalt, all that just sunk. So it was a big, I mean, you could have had a swimming pool out there.
An iNewsSource analysis of data from San Diego's Public Utilities Department shows asbestos cement pipes like the one outside Lemoyne's house accounted for 3 of every 5 breaks between 2012 and the end of September. Stan Griffith is the Deputy Director of the Public Utilities Department.
We're always concerned, especially in the drought, about main breaks and the water loss.
Griffith says breaks have historically occurred mostly in cast iron pipes. And while spills from those breaks still accounted for just over half the 35 million gallons of water lost since 2012, the water loss from asbestos cement breaks is adding up. With the region in the midst of a historically bad drought, this poses a new problem for a city whose efforts have been focused on replacing the cast iron mains. A small part of those efforts could be seen on a drizzly October morning on 60th Street, south of El Cajon Boulevard. As part of a larger project, a city-contracted work crew was busy replacing 11,000 feet of 1950s vintage cast iron water mains with new PVC pipe.
The project started toward the end of May of 2015, and we have a total of 400 working days in the project, which is not the same as calendar days. And so we anticipate that we should be done toward the end of 2016.
By then, Public Utility should be on its way to replacing some of the city's 2,200 miles of asbestos cement mains. City records show the main on Beta Street broke twice before, in 2008 and again last year. But the city, focused on replacing the break-prone cast iron mains, opted not to replace it.
Now that we've completed or will be completing the condition assessment, again, we will pivot to the AC mains. And my expectation is with the history on this particular main, it would be one of the ones that we'll replace probably first in the early going.
There are costs beyond wasted water when mains break. Since the start of 2012, San Diego has paid out almost $9.8 million to settle claims and pay contractors for repairs to private property. That's in addition to the cost of city crews who shut off valves and repair broken mains. The break on Beta Street cost the city more than $27,000 in damage claims and contractor cleanup fees. Lemoyne intends to file a claim soon. She says repeated rate hikes have left her paying between $170 and $200 every other month.
Okay, yeah, you raised our sewer hikes and our water rates back then, but why are we having all these breaks now?
For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Joey Arardi.
For an interactive map and searchable database of water main breaks, visit iNewsSource.org. San Diego colleges rank among the country's best schools for veterans. The Military Times reports San Diego State University and San Diego-based Ashford University were in the top 20 veteran-friendly schools. SDSU has an 89% graduation rate for veterans, one of the highest in the country. Cal State San Marcos and the University of San Diego also made the list and were within the top 100. On this Veterans Day, when we remember those who have fought to defend life as we know it, California launches a new bill to identify and honor veterans. The new legislation will allow veterans to apply for a veteran designation on California driver licenses and IDs. Officials say California is home to the nation's largest veteran population with nearly 2 million. But almost
when
one.
They go to the DMV and find out that they can get this designation, and that they have to go to CalVet first. Do you think that will result in more veterans getting into the benefit system?
Absolutely. I think that is the whole purpose and idea behind this bill and legislation that was passed, to get more veterans aware of benefits that they may not have available to them.
Officials say the bill has the potential to bring California veterans over $750 million in direct federal benefits annually. A former Navy SEAL from San Diego and his specially trained dog joined Peggy Pico with a preview of a new documentary about the two heroes and what they're doing now to help other veterans.
The documentary Seal Dog airs tomorrow night on the Smithsonian Channel. The film recounts how a Navy SEAL and his dog Chopper saved many lives during 4 deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. Here's a clip.
On a hunch, guessing the enemies were nearby, Trevor decided to cast Chopper out to find them. Chopper would follow his nose and instincts and attack if necessary.
Former Navy SEAL Trevor Maroshek and SEAL Dog Chopper, welcome to Evening Edition.
Oh, I'm honored to be here.
Glad to have you both here. Now, you helped develop the SEAL's first canine unit, but there's a long history of using dogs in warfare dating back to World War I. How has the role of dogs in combat evolved over the decades?
Well, specifically, we don't use the conventional forces dogs in the way that they train them. We actually do multi-purpose canine dogs, which means that we're responsible for multiple. It's kind of a proof of concept. We could do about 5 or 6 different things that dogs normally wouldn't do all at once.
That's a lot. So what kind of training did Chopper and other dogs like him go through to become a SEAL dog?
Well, aside from the arduous physical training, they also go through explosive detection, extensive bite work, laser target acquisition, search and rescue, tracking, and then the list kind of goes on and on and on, based on the needs of what the teams need.
But I understand they actually can do fast rope out of helicopters?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the partnership fun stuff. That's jumping out of airplanes, fast roping, rappelling. You know, we actually go swimming. He swam 2 miles with me in the ocean.
2 miles?
Oh, yeah, easily.
Okay. How many dogs actually can do that and make it into a special forces unit?
Well, we actually have arduous training for the dogs and actually an evaluation process where less than 1% of the dogs that we look at worldwide actually make the cut to become a Navy SEAL dog.
And he did this for how long then?
He did this since 2007, and I got out in 2012.
All right. So is there special equipment I saw in our clip there, he had a bulletproof vest?
Actually, yeah, there's a bulletproof vest, there's goggles, there's cameras, there's a whole bunch of different equipment. Mainly what I would use is load-bearing equipment so I could do the fast roping and rappelling, and that he'd be really fast and nimble on his feet.
And explain to us what goggles are.
Goggles are kind of like sunglasses for dogs, because when they go into high altitude near lots of sunlight and everything, such as in the Hindu Kush, they can actually develop certain conditions that actually can hinder their eyes, along with debris.
Okay. What kind of impact would you say canines have in the military?
Well, aside from the phenomenal capability of making sure guys get home safely to their families, they also have a real big role in companionship, and had a very, very profound interaction with the other combatants there as well, too.
I'm betting on speaking about that there's a strong bond between trainer and his dog. How do you cope with having to send your dog into a situation where you know he could be hurt or killed, like in combat?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, the dog's an extension of the handler, and it goes to all dog handlers in the military. And actually, it's the same premise that we go over there for. We're not there for ourselves. We're there to make sure that we accomplish the mission and that we, get the other guys home safely. And there's no greater sacrifice than sacrificing yourself for somebody else. However, I would be devastated if something were to have happened to him downrange, and I was very blessed that he was able to make it through.
Is there any, do you ever think about or have a comment about anybody who says, well, the dog has no choice. You have a choice to do this. You're sending a dog into combat.
Yeah. It's actually, believe it or not, I actually completely enjoyed sending him downrange, because in a lot of effects, he actually saved my life in about, 60 to 100 guys, on numerous occasions.
I see. After you retired from the military, you started the SEAL Dog Foundation here in San Diego. What does the foundation do?
Actually, we help wounded veterans find service dogs and emotional support dogs, and for their families as well, too. So we'll actually spend time with the veteran and actually help them pick the perfect dog for them, and then help them do the transition, and then actually teach them the tradecraft as well, too, so they can further their capabilities.
And match them up.
Correct.
All right. Trevor Maroshek and Chopper, thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you very much.
I want to let folks know also the new documentary Seal Dog, that is about you, premieres tomorrow on Veterans Day at 8 p.m. on the Smithsonian Channel.
Some good news for California collegiate hopefuls. The University of California is considering a proposal to boost undergraduate enrollment at 9 campuses. 5,000 more California residents could be enrolling in the UC system next fall, representing the biggest bump in in-state enrollment in at least a decade. The additional slots would go to freshmen and transfer students. The UC board will consider the proposal next week.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour. Hari Srinivasan catches up with a man walking around the world. That's Tuesday on the PBS News Hour.
Everything's coming up roses for documentary filmmaker Ken Burns. Today he was named Grand Marshal for next year's Rose Parade. Burns says he has never been to the Pasadena Parade before, calling it a new adventure. This year's parade theme is called Find Your Adventure. PBS broadcast a newly restored version of Burns' This Civil War documentary in the fall, 25 years after its debut. More brisk autumn weather on tap for San Diego. Sunny by the beaches with 60s and 70s, 70s and 80s in the inland valleys, 50s and 60s in the mountains, and 70s in the desert. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Midday Edition, a special Veterans Day broadcast of the military anthology program Incoming. We'll also speak to the show's producer. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.